All right.
Welcome, everybody, to the Real Sharks podcast, a special review with your host, Steve and Rob. And this is going to be, oh, God, a Real Sharks review. Hey, we got to give it a little, little fanfare there. I think it's time, everybody. I think that's what the people want, Steve. You
Yeah,
got to
I
give them
think
what they
so too.
want, kind of like this movie.
Oh,
So, this movie, of course, we're going to be talking about Wonka today. With dreams of opening a shop and renowned for its chocolate, young, poor Willy Wonka discovers that the industry is run by a cartel of greedy chocolatiers.
yeah.
Of course, starring Timothy Chevrolet. Can you help me out with that cast, Steve?
Yeah. It's starring Timothy Chalamet as Willy Wonka. You got a surprise by Hugh Grant as the only Oompa Loompa. Rowan Alec Kinston. He played the priest. You know him as Mr. Bean. Callie Lane as Noodle, and Olivia Colman. Uh you want to take this over, Rob? As far as how you felt about it?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and get started with this review here. So I want to start by saying, first of all, I liked the movie. I actually did like it. Overall, I liked it. There wasn't anything okay, but it's truly, and this will probably be the title of this review. It's the tale of two movies.
Yeah.
One movie, you have Willy Wonka basically showing how awesome he is, his whole all his chocolate ideas, how he came to be so famous and so infamous and so weird. But then you have this other side of this movie, which is I don't know about Willy Wonka saving some orphan. And while that story was really touching and good, and I admired some of the music in it, and the movie it's a musical,
Hmm.
and for being a musical too, it's okay. There was I didn't think some of the songs were too memorable. Scrub was good, and there was a few others, but I can't even tell you more than that. One of the ones that made me laugh so much was "Sorry Noodle." That was a little
Oh my
ridiculous.
gosh.
That made
Yeah.
me laugh a little bit.
Just
But
because of the zaniness.
yeah, "Sorry Noodle." Anyway, um, it just sounds funny.
Yeah.
If you're not watching it with that, it sounds funny. Come on, let's be honest, everybody. But
Yeah.
what I didn't enjoy, so it basically seemed like they shot one movie where they were like, let's have Willy Wonka doing all this cool Willy Wonka stuff, and
Mhm.
then somebody jumped in, was like, you can't have all that. You have to have something else going on in a subplot here. Willy Wonka has to save like something. What does he have to save? I don't know, like I guess an orphan. Okay.
Yeah.
And that seemed like so inserted into the movie. There was hardly Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa, and the part he was in was pretty funny. But overall, it was like,
You liked him as
okay,
the Oompa
uh,
Loompa?
he looks like an Oompa Loompa. Sorry, Hugh. Sorry.
Yeah. It
He
was CG, but you could tell.
But basically, long story short, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the performance. I enjoyed some of the songs. I enjoyed everything that was about Willy Wonka.
Mhm.
What I didn't enjoy was this like subplot going on with the cartel of chocolate tears,
Yeah.
where they're basically like, keeping everyone down. Because here's where I'm going to break into what I always thought Willy Wonka was and what apparently he is now. So I always just assumed Willy Wonka was like a chocolatier, like a weird, reclusive, mysterious guy who was like a genius at making chocolate.
Yeah.
Whether it was through magic, whether it was through, technology, he was able to produce things that people couldn't imagine. And that's all he was. I never thought of Willy Wonka as like, I bet this guy saved the town one time. You know, I
Yes. Yes.
I never thought of it like that.
Mhm.
Um So on that premise, what Willy Wonka was not just a man of chocolate, but he was a man of the orphans and saving like
Yeah,
people. Or
he's
I
like the savior of this whatever town. Like these
I
people like help him at the end.
I didn't understand that. It seemed so insert. The story was still pretty. Don't get me wrong. I
Mhm.
still liked the story. But what I didn't like was just this, it would just stop the main thing. It would just stop what seemed like the main musical. And so on that note, I didn't like it at the same time. There it was like liking 1 hour of the movie and then being like really hating the next hour. Like it was like one act, second act, hated it. I
Yeah.
loved I loved Peel in there as the chief. That was great. That was amazing.
Ah, man, I don't
I
know.
thought he was funny. I thought the corruption angle of him getting out of his car. I mean, it was cliche, but don't get me wrong, it
Yeah.
was funny. But and I always thought of Willy Wonka as a guy who didn't like put his competition in prison, but he actually like beat them because he was so
Yeah.
amazing. Because
Mhm.
isn't the story that they stole his ideas? Like, that's always what I kind of got. And I kudos to doing some of the songs like Pure Imagination, awesome. But beyond that, I would give this movie. Oh, you know what? Let me stop here. Steve,
Mhm.
what did you think of the movie?
Dude, I thought we were gonna disagree. We are disagreeing on some points, but what I will say was I agree with you, man. It's a tale of two movies. Like, I don't get it. I don't get what I was supposed to come away with. Like, is this supposed to be a prequel to the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka,
Yes.
or
Yes,
is
it
it the
is.
one that's the other? Because it felt more like the Johnny Depp one to
You
me.
think so?
It
Yeah,
at
and
points, just
and
like you
at
said, because
points,
it's
yes,
at
at
points, it's like
points.
they didn't know, they didn't want to make up their mind. Like you said, I didn't understand the whole orphan and the chocolate cartel people. And then but it's like also with his mom, by the way. It's like you see the backstory with his mom and how she was like, hey, when you come up with the chocolate, recipe, I'll tell you the secret. And she, obviously, spoilers, passes away. But dude,
Steve,
what was the
Steve,
point of
Steve.
that, Rob? I don't get
To
it.
express to you the love you give is equal to the love you make. No, I know. It,
It's like,
it,
what the heck?
it's about who you share it with. It's not about the chocolate, but who you share it with. Hey, that
Yeah.
was, it was a feel good. It was a feel good.
But I felt like it's more so like if that's the point, Rob, then why is this a Willy Wonka film? This could have just been anything.
Right.
And that's what I was
Good
thinking.
point.
Like I
Good
don't I
point.
don't hate this film like I thought I was. But I just walked away like, why was that a Willy Wonka? Like this could have been anything. Like he didn't act like Willy Wonka. You have just
Okay, no,
things and visuals
I will
like it.
debate you there. Here's where I think it was weird. Okay, and here's where we're going to be split on something. So,
Mm,
debate here one. What I thought was good was actually came off as weird. So you remember when their spoilers, our audience, they're dancing on that like market or train
that
station or
thing.
whatever.
Yeah,
The
yeah, the whole
first
thing.
thing that came to my head, and call it controversial all you want, my audience, I was thinking to myself, this is some fucking groomer shit, man. Why is
Oh.
Willy Wonka hanging out with this little girl like this, dude? It's like fucking almost weird. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know though, because
And
how old did you think Will
it
Wonka was
was
supposed to be though?
weird. Well, dude, not like that. He's not supposed to. They literally made it like Michael Jackson's fucking chocolate factory at that point. It's like, okay,
Because all the kids were there.
they
Yeah.
they literally made it like this is Michael Jackson's chocolate factory. So,
Oh my
um,
god.
what? That's what
He
it
has
was.
he has a hat.
That
I'll say that. He didn't throw
okay.
it like
Anyway,
fish.
back to the review. But here's where I was split on that though, Steve. So
Mm.
as he was doing that with that chick, I was like thinking to myself, I wonder if they were literally like, no one's gonna want to watch him doing this on his own, making candy. And I
Right.
was
That's
sitting
what I
there
thought
going,
too.
dude, I would be totally okay if it was just him doing this right now. Because this is who I
Oh
thought Willy
my god.
Wonka was. I
I am
thought
so
he
glad
was
you brought
like
that up.
a weird reclusive guy that's so into his candy that, he was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
I don't fucking need anything else.
I don't need anything else, and he gives it away to a child. So what is the point, Rob? And all of it, like that's what I mean when I say what is the point. It's like like you said, bro, like he's like such an enigma that you don't really need any backstory because it would actually taint his like mythicism. So when the point I
Right.
really was like, all
Like
right,
Michael Jackson.
really, you kind of like it. Here's the thing why, right? Comparison to Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Michael Jackson in Moonwalker does a scene where he does like a transformer bit. He turns into a car. You remember that at the end?
Yes.
And then, but in here, Wonka uses magic. He says he wanted to be a magician, but then he does real magic. And I was like,
He
what's,
also used technology, though.
yeah, yeah, true. Yeah. And I don't know, Rob, I just felt weird about it. And I just didn't feel anything out of Timothy Chalamet, no
I
disrespect,
liked it, man.
whatever. I just felt like there wasn't anything. That's what I meant about it, bro. Like I'm like, well, dude, this could have just been whatever. Could have just you could
I
have had a new
thought he was
IP.
better than so see, that's the thing, man. It depends on what kind of Willy Wonka you really like, because that's why it's supposed to
Right?
be more like the Gene Hackman one. It's
You
more like
really
that
you
one. It
you
is
really think
because
that? I don't know,
yes,
man.
because the factory looked just like a castle, remember? And he was like
Yeah.
building on a big castle, and the Oompa Loompas were supposed to be small, and but he was actually taller than that. That's how they explained that.
Right. Yeah.
But it just a lot of it was just like that's not what I expected because the movies prior, even
Yeah.
the remake, always made Willy Wonka to be like he was a badass at candy. Period.
Yeah.
He didn't
Yeah.
need anything else. He
At
didn't need
all.
to go save the people, and that was the whole
Mhm.
point. And
Yeah.
this is what I didn't understand too. And if you do have that story where he was like with Noodle and all that, then why
Mhm.
did he go looking for Charlie for the whole kill
Why?
child
That's
thing when
the whole
he
thing.
already
He had
knew
the child. He had the child
and
there.
he had the
Why go
child?
through? I don't know why. Because the whole thing with his mom giving him the chocolate, right? And it looked kind of like a golden ticket. I thought maybe that it's like you see where
Right,
he kind of started. But like you were saying, Rob, again, I agree with you on this. It's like he had Noodle. What was the point? Even though Noodle went back and spoilers again, went back to her family in the end, he can be like, hey, I'm gonna make this factory. Why not join me or what?
right,
Whatever. It just seems weird. If this is supposed to be a prequel, it doesn't explain anything of what happens to. Why is he a recluse? Why is it just
right.
in this weird, impoverished
Where
place
did the
where
did the what happened with the Oompa Loompas?
yeah, where happened to the Oompa Loompas? Why did they not speak as much? Because that also like I like Hugh Jackman, Hugh Grant. I mean,
The
but
whole
he's
angle
so
of him owing the Oompa Loompas was kind of lame.
it was so lame, dude. That I felt like that was the tacked on part where it's like, well, why are we? You already have a plot. Why are we doing this thing with the Oompa Loompas? Two movies, like you were saying. It's
Right.
pick up, but I think you were right, man. Where it's like I felt like they wanted to have it so open ended for people to be like, well, if you like, Johnny Depp's, that could be a prequel to that because of the Oompa Loompa side quest. Or if you want it with, Gene Wilder's, you have the Chocolate Cartel. But you can't go two
I
ways.
I think it was more Gene Wilder because one, like I said, the factory was more like a castle,
Hmm.
and you also had you had pure imagination sung in,
But they
which is
had to do that.
a
Yeah.
direct tie-in.
And that's such a cheap, like, we got to get this in. We're doing a Willy Wonka movie, we got to do pure imagination. But just like you were saying, bro, like, I didn't hate the musical aspect of it. It's just like none of the
I just
songs
hated
really
some of the extra
landed.
stuff. I hated
Yeah,
I
dude.
you know what it was? Here it is, and we're gonna tell you exactly how it is, our audience. And I think me and Steve are gonna come to 100% agreement. We hated the fat that was on this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
The fat. There was
Hmm.
fat on this movie. There
Yep.
was these angles and stuff you can tell the studio was like, this will not work this way. You have to do it like this. And for
Yeah.
some goddamn reason, they thought this would be a better explanation than that. And all they needed to do was just show Willy Wonka by himself doing candy things. You could have cut that movie in half, actually,
Yeah.
if you just had Willy Wonka doing Willy Wonka things. In fact, I thought that was going to be the angle, was he was basically going to be doing all this chocolate things, and this girl was just going to show up all the time
Show
as he
up.
was doing
Right.
it, not actually where he saves her and all this weird debt and cartel. And
Yeah.
there were so many like angles going on too that I was like, what
What?
is
Like,
this is a Willy Wonka film, right?
right. That's what I'm saying. It's so odd. It's like at a point, dude, I was like, I forgot. Like, I forgot I was watching a Wonka
Me
film
too.
until I saw an Oompa Loompa.
I
But then
also
after the point, you're like, I'm growing so numb to seeing Hugh Grant not act like, an Oompa Loompa that's like silent and whatevering. He's cracking jokes. The Wonka, his impersonation of Wonka is just very just I don't know. It felt kind of kiddie, even though this is supposed to be for a kids film. It felt too
it
kiddie at
didn't need
points.
to be, right. It didn't
It's
need to be
like
either.
just like you said, bro. I don't. You said something that was so great, man. I don't know if they got scared, Rob, where they're like, we have to make it zany and too stupid at points for children, or they're not going to pay attention to just Wonka with chocolate. So we
Right.
have to have Noodle. We have to have the chocolate cartel. We have to have all this weird shit in it. And I'm like, well, you kind of messed the movie up when you do that.
Yeah, you didn't need that. You just needed Willy Wonka doing Willy Wonka shit.
Willy Wonka stuff. Like, would you have cared if it was just that? If he was like,
No.
no, just gonna do Willy
If
Wonka,
they
only
literally cut
chocolate.
Noodle out of the whole movie,
Yeah, she's not in the film.
you would still have the same movie. And
Yeah.
see, we're not being ageist, we're not being sexist. It wasn't because she was black. If you didn't
Mm,
even know that listening to this, now you know. It had
now
nothing to do
yeah.
with our review. It was simply basically an inserted story that got in the way of a really cool, good one that was interesting. That was like, I just need it to be that.
Yep. I totally agree. I totally agree. And it's not a bad film. Like, don't get us wrong.
I
I'm not
give it,
trashing this film.
and I give it 2 scores. This is what's weird about it. And
Go
it's going to
ahead.
be one of those movies like I give it a score on depending on what day you ask me. It literally, for me, and I'm not joking, Steve, it swings from a 6.9 to a
Mhm.
7 to a 7 to a low 7. But it's
Okay.
in between there for me. So it's like probably a 6.9. I won't give it anything past a 7 though.
I agree. I was gonna go 6.5 solid just for the whole film. Just
It
because it wasn't
wasn't
bad,
bad,
but
but
I
it
also
was like
don't want to see it again.
I won't mind watching it again, but
Some points.
it was
Some points.
like somebody's gonna do an edit of that movie and it's gonna be a lot better.
It's gonna be a whole lot. They're gonna clean it up and they're gonna go. Look, we're gonna put direct tie-ins, or like you said, Rob. Just the fat of the film needs to be trimmed. There was a whole bunch of stuff that would like, what the hell is this doing in this film? It was like some points where it was picking up and it was like, oh, this is cool. It's visually cool. You know what I
It's
mean? You get
visually
this.
stunning, yeah.
Yeah, like
But you know
especially
what
when
they
they do
say,
the musical
Steve?
parts.
If you wanna make them sigh, you gotta show some thigh. That was my favorite joke in that whole movie.
Oh my god, really?
Yes, and then when he showed up with the leader hosen, he's like, "Hey, what's going on?"
I don't know if I had a. I don't
But
know,
again,
bro. And
it was kind of unnecessary in the context that was happening.
yeah,
But
definitely. And what did you not like that they didn't have sort of the weird darker overtones in the film, kind of like the first Gene
well,
Wilder?
that's why they were going with sorry, why I said Gene Hackman earlier, but yeah, the Gene Wilder one. It was more of like the Gene
Hmm.
Wilder one because
Yeah,
it was more lighthearted. I don't know why I
which
said Gene
is
Hackman.
yeah, I get that too. I like that, but also not because it's as much as it's trying to be lighthearted, it's being like over the top with it, which Willy Wonka was just naturally like, this is lighthearted for kids. We're just doing a lot of
But
invention,
it was
stuff like
dark.
that.
It was a dark thing because he was a reclusive, mysterious guy. So it's like a
Mhm.
big, okay, well, what the fuck happened to Willy Wonka still?
What's wrong with him? He's, you know what I mean? There's parts where you're going through a tunnel and chickens are getting their
And
head cut
if
off.
you say to us, will they explain that in the Gene Wilder one that they were stealing his inventions? I'm going to hit you over the head
I
and
know.
say, how? When they were
Yeah,
in jail.
you're right. I just don't, and I don't want to ever see any more backstory about the Oompa Loompas. I don't think
I
we
don't
need
need it.
them more. We don't. It's like again, it's like the
I
Wonka
would
thing,
have
bro. It's like we don't need a backstory to this character. That's the whole cool part about it. It's like you
right.
don't know where the
Actually,
hell he came from.
that's what would have been better is you could have actually kept the mom thing, cut the noodle thing out, put more of like his inventions and his adventures, and been
Yeah,
like called it a movie because there was even the moment where like one of the guys eats the chocolate and he's like,
the
"Oh,
chocolate.
this
Yeah.
is that's Yeti sweat." I was like,
Hmm.
"What the hell? Where did he get what?" I was like,
Yeah,
"That's an interesting story to hear. How the hell did Willy Wonka get a hold of Yeti sweat?" And it's
I
like
know, bro.
you don't go with that.
You don't, but
You
you
don't
I
go
guess
with
they're
that.
just supposed to be like he grew up on that like, like the island or something like that with his mom and it's something it
It
just
didn't.
seems
There was. It
it
was
just
more. They just added more questions to things when they
yeah,
didn't need to. They just added a story when they didn't need to. Period. That's
but
that's
I
my
think
whole
they're
thing on it.
I think they were trying to do that to be like, well, there you go, Rob. Like you want him to be weird and zany, like there's the Yeti sweat and then he goes to the island, he gets those like big long
I like that.
things and stuff, like, which is
I
interesting.
liked
Like
when they opened this shop. I thought that was cool. I liked the beginning when he like showed everyone his chocolate. I liked
yeah,
every
that was
time
cool.
he did Willy Wonka shit.
But when
I
he went
like
outside of that and he was just a guy with
that was
children
saving an
and
orphan and helping
yeah.
this like lot. I was like,
What the hell is
this
this? This
is
is
odd.
stupid. Yeah. It was just dumb. It was just plot filler, it felt like. It's like, what?
Right.
I don't
I'm
care about
literally,
this.
I'm serious. I'll say it again. It was like somebody was like, no, we can't have him just doing Willy Wonka stuff. We have to add all the stuff about an orphan and make it better when you didn't need that at all.
It's
When he's
interesting.
just Willy Wonka, that's all he is that he was never anything else. He was just a zany chocolatier. He's not, you could probably in the whole context maybe write him as Batman.
Oh
Like,
my
and I'm
god.
talking like maybe we're talking like Tim Burton's
Batman?
Batman.
Oh
But
my god.
I'm talking like,
Oh my
early Batman. That's the only way Willy Wonka could ever be like that dark in that premise. But beyond that, man, it was it didn't need to be anything else.
You heard it from the host of the Real Sharks podcast himself. Willy Wonka is DC canon.
I didn't say it's DC canon. I'm just saying that that's as dark as you could possibly take it. Like Tim
Right.
Burton did a
Yeah,
good
I
job
agree.
of taking it as dark as you can take it.
Yeah.
You can't go darker than that, but
You
it
can't.
could have used a little slight darkness in it. But there was, I don't know, man. Like I said,
I agree,
Tale of
man.
Two movies. One movie I hated, the other movie I liked.
I liked as well. And then the other one was just forgettable.
Yeah, the other one was really forgettable with songs that were also forgettable too.
Yeah. Yep.
So you heard it from us. Wonka 6.9.
Yep.